I'm part of an organization called Kaivalya Education Foundation, and we work in leadership training for government school headmasters, block, cluster, and district level officers. Our basic view is that until the leaders in the education system don't change their view of children's capabilities, until then we'll continue to do our rattabazi and telling children that they're inadequate and forcing them to learn by rote. So leaders have to first change their mindsets and lead this change, and that's why we work with leaders within the public education system. So we work with over 10,000 leaders across India, from Assam to Jammu and Kashmir, Rajasthan, Jharkhand, Bihar, all over the place. And we work with over 50,000 schools in the country. So when we started, a lot of people used to say government schools will never change, those principals will never change, the district education officers will never change. But ultimately you have to believe in people. Every human being is good and wants to do good, but just gets stuck in systems because of which he or she makes poor choices. So when you actually sit down in a safe space and have a reflective session with a bunch of people who are leading a district, you see that they didn't enjoy their education themselves. They were beaten as children. They were never given voice. And then you ask them, why don't you change that? And they think that they can't do it. But actually they can. They have the power to do it. They've just not thought, they've not reflected, they've not had the time. So I remember I met one of the principals who came to me and said, I have not been to school for the last 17 years. You can never change me. And I said, no, my job is not to change you, but the very fact that you're coming and engaging with me means that you're curious about changing yourself and believing in children. And he's now one of our biggest advocates. Right? One of the principals came crying to me and said, sir, after 25 years, for the first time, children ask me to stay extra after class. Normally they're just waiting for the bell to ring. So when human beings change and start believing in children, the nature of relationship between the teacher, the educator and the child completely changes, and that causes joy to both sides. It's not just to the child, it's to the teacher as well, because she finally feels useful. We all need those human connections. So that's why we started this work for helping the educators change their point of view. I roamed across India. I must have seen over 500 schools between 2002 and 2007. I kept on meeting different types of government teachers from Bihar, MP, UP, Andhra Pradesh, all over the place. And when I sat back and I thought about all the people I met, every place which had a reflective leader who believed in children and provided safe spaces for children, that school invariably was doing better than other schools which were learned by rote and run by autocratic principals. Right? You just saw that as a pattern. Now, why were people choosing to believe in children? Why were they choosing to create a more democratic environment? We couldn't find the pattern to that. But about 10-15% of people are choosing that. And 60-70% of people are choosing a semi-autocratic method, and 10-15% are choosing the super autocratic method. Our question was, could we get that middle 70% to also adopt more democratic methods where they actually believe in children and they have a different quality of relationship with their children? And that's what really provoked our work, saying how do we shift that sort of autocratic, learn by rote, non-believing in children to instead saying enjoying the process of education by co-creating with children. Most educators, when a child is not learning math, start imagining that the child is stupid, right? And the child is lazy, and child is buddhu. These are the typical things that you come out with. But really the problem is not with the child, the problem is with us as educators, right? We are not able to forge that connection with the child so that she's able to express herself. We are not able to create the safety so the child expresses herself. And when you listen to the child, you will recognize, so we work a lot on socio-emotional learning, right? So what is the nature of relationship between the child and the adult? One of our signs of a good teacher is, does the child feel comfortable coming and pulling your kurta and asking you, can I go to the bathroom, right? It's such a simple sign, but that means I feel safe to come close to you, right? Otherwise you always stand at the back, you put your arms between your legs and you say, sir, please, mujhe bathroom jana hai. You're in fear all the time. Now, unless you shift that in the educator, nothing is going to change, right? And by doing deep reflections with educators, by showing them examples of environments which are more positive, more democratic, by helping them listen to children and seeing what actual problems children have, actually these educators suddenly just collapse, because they suddenly realize that, my God, I was also like this when I was 6 years old and nobody listened to me. And now they then go on a mission saying, no, I want to just listen to children. I want to just allow them a safe space to express themselves. So you have to give the adult educator an opportunity to listen to children at least once in his life, because he's been taught that, बच्चे तभी पढ़ेंगे जब आप strict हो, बच्चे तभी करेंगे जब आप मारते हो. He's never seen the alternative. So until you show the alternative, nothing is going to change. When you see the alternative, suddenly he can't go back to his old ways. Safe space is a little easier to make happen. I think the second part, which is partnership, is more difficult. I think as adults, we somehow believe that we know more than children. We can't believe that they might know something that we don't know. So I think we are struggling with the second part for adults to work more as partners with children. I think that change is going to take a little longer. Children as change agents. So when you go and tell adults that, we can get children to do change in the society and all, they have no confidence in them. But we show samples of what children have done, and we organize, we show demonstrations working with their own children over a period of 3 months, what we're able to make their children do. So let me tell you about a really conservative community we were working in Rajasthan. Extremely patriarchal society where girl child, you don't imagine she can do anything. वो क्या बर्तन भांडेगी और क्या करेगी और कुछ नहीं कर सकती. And when we spoke to the children said that the reason why they feel afraid in school is because there's a Shamshan Ghat, there's a cremation ground right next to the school. So we said, okay, what can you do about it? So first the children said, we can't do anything. Then some girl came up and said, no, we'll go and talk to the adults. These girls went, young, 4th, 5th, 6th standard children went and spoke to the panchayat in front of everybody and said, this is the reason we feel afraid. The panchayat actually was sensitive. They had never heard girls speak and express their fear. And then the panchayat actually organized to move the Shamshan Ghat away from the school in such a way that the school then became a much safer place. Otherwise there used to be a fear that there's bhoot over there and there's this and that. So it became a much safer space for the children itself. So when the adults saw this, and then we sort of made that video viral, showing other people in the community that girls can do this. So the only way to change is to show examples of young people who've actually done it. Right? When you show children, some children have been change agents. So we run Bal Panchayats in all our schools, right? So where the children itself take charge of running the school, which means they take care of the logistics, they take care of the school toilets, they take care of the cleanliness, they take care of the repair. You don't imagine that they can do it, right? We run kitchen gardens in the school gardens, right? Where children take care of the school garden, they decide the midday meal, they decide how much potato to buy, they decide what to sow, they decide what to cut, they decide the payments for the cook and stuff like that. People don't believe it's possible, but it's happening in thousands of schools, right? So the more and more you show adults the fact that children can lead, I think adults are then willing to step back. And then they get really energized, because your work is actually much less. If you allow children to lead, your work is to encourage them, your work is to help them reflect, your work is to keep them motivated, as opposed to trying to teach them. You don't need, till 250 years ago, there was no such thing as a school. And people were still causing huge change. There were young people at much younger age, at the age of 8 and 10 and 12, people used to start working and causing change in their society. It's only now that we've said that until you finish middle school, until you finish high school, until you finish college and you've got an education, you can't do anything. I think this is a completely wrong point of view. All those are supposed to be support structures to accentuate further what you can already do. But if you don't start doing at the age of 10, 11 and 12, then all these actually become debilitating structures. They prevent you from doing, they delay you from doing, they distract you from doing, and that's not the purpose of education. Education should be to lift you up, not give you less confidence that you can do something. So to all the children who are listening over there, just start doing. Go do something, get together with your friends and start doing. You'll be amazed what you can do.